Okay, so you've got to hear this story. Seriously, it sounds like something straight out of a Hollywood movie. We're talking about a small, basically unknown team from China that drops a piece of tech so powerful it sends a massive shockwave through the entire tech world. It vaporized fortunes and completely upended everything we thought we knew about the race for AI. So let me just start with a question for you. What kind of events, what kind of force is powerful enough to just erase $1 trillion of value from the stock market almost overnight? A war? Another global pandemic? Nope. The answer is way more specific and honestly a lot more shocking.
That's the number. $1 trillion. That is the staggering amount that got wiped clean off the US tech index after a single announcement on January 20th, 2025. And this wasn't some slow burn, you know? This was a financial earthquake.
And right at the epicenter of that earthquake, one company, NVIDIA. In just one day, it lost $589 billion in value. Let me say that again. That is the biggest single-day loss for any company in the history of the stock market, ever.
But here's the thing, this wasn't a market-wide meltdown. The broader tech index, the NASDAQ, it dropped about 3%. I mean, that's a big deal, but look at NVIDIA. It was down a mind-blowing 17%. This was a precision strike. And the weapon? A brand new AI chatbot from China called DeepSeek.
So who is this challenger that seemed to just appear out of thin air? The company's name is DeepSeek, a name that, honestly, until January 2025, basically nobody in the West had even heard of. And their story? Well, it's a classic David versus Goliath tale.
I mean, on one side, you've got these American titans like OpenAI with over 3,500 employees backed by billions and billions of dollars. And on the other side, you've got DeepSeek. They built their world-changing model with a tiny team of just 200 people. And get this, 95% of them are under 30, and they did it all for a reported cost of just over $5 million. That's not just a difference in scale, it's a totally different universe.
You know, this quote from OpenAI's founder, Sam Altman, it just perfectly captures the thinking from the big players at the time. The belief was that building top-tier AI took so much money and so much power that nobody else could even dream of competing. It was, in his own words, totally hopeless.
Well, it turns out hopeless was maybe not the right word. Within a week of launching, DeepSeek shot up to become the #1 downloaded app in the United States, blowing right past ChatGPT. And the kicker? While OpenAI was charging people hundreds of dollars for its best model, DeepSeek was 100% free.
So, the big question is, how on earth did they do it? How did this tiny team on a shoestring budget manage to leapfrog the biggest names in technology? Well, they didn't win by outspending them. They won by outthinking them. They came up with a fundamentally new way for an AI to actually, well, to think. Okay, so the first piece of their secret sauce is something called chain of thought. Now, instead of just spitting out the first answer that pops into its head, a chain of thought model actually stops for a second. It thinks. It asks itself counter questions. It looks at a problem from different angles. It tries to reason its way to a solution, a lot like you or I would. So the process starts by really analyzing what you're asking. Then, and this is the brilliant part, it challenges its own first instincts. It's like it's saying, wait a minute, is that too obvious? It explores all these other connections before it finally pulls everything together into a much smarter, much more nuanced answer. This is exactly why it can solve those tricky riddles and logic puzzles that used to completely stump older models. The second key to the puzzle is an architecture called mixture of experts. Think about it like this. Instead of having one gigantic, all-knowing brain that's firing on all cylinders all the time, DeepSeek has a whole team of specialists on call. So if you ask a coding question, it calls up its engineer expert. A medical question, it brings in the doctor. This makes it unbelievably efficient. And here's what that efficiency looks like in practice. A traditional model might have 1.8 trillion parameters. You can think of those like brain cells that are always on. DeepSeek, though, it only activates about 37 billion of its parameters at any one time. It's a massive, massive difference that translates into huge savings on cost and energy. And the result of all this brilliant innovation? Well, look at the scoreboard. It is a top-tier performer.
The benchmarks show it's the #1 model for coding and for quantitative reasoning, and it's a super close second to ChatGPT on things like scientific knowledge. They didn't just catch up. In a lot of ways, they actually pulled ahead.
But, and this is a huge but, there's a catch. This model comes from China, and with that comes one very big, very predictable problem. One that creates this really fascinating paradox.
Ask DeepSeek about math or coding or logic, and it's absolutely brilliant. But the second you ask it a politically sensitive question about China, like Tiananmen Square or anything critical of Xi Jinping, you hit a brick wall. The censorship is baked right into the model's core.
And right when you think you have this story figured out, here comes the twist. Despite that censorship, DeepSeek did something its American rivals have refused to do. It made its underlying code completely open source. Anyone, anywhere, can download it, change it, and build whatever they want on top of it.
I mean, this creates the ultimate irony, doesn't it? OpenAI, the company with the word open right there in its name, has become super secretive, leading people to joke that it should be called closed AI. Meanwhile, a censored model from an authoritarian country is the one that's turned out to be more technologically open.
And of course, because it's open, the rest of the world is already jumping on it. American companies like Perplexity AI and even Microsoft almost immediately downloaded the model, stripped out that Chinese censorship layer, and started plugging this incredibly powerful new engine into their own products. The innovation just instantly went global.
And this all builds to the final, absolutely jaw-dropping irony of this whole story, which brings us right back to that trillion-dollar stock market crash. Okay, so let's just trace this chain of events, because it is wild. Step 1. The US government bans the sale of its most advanced AI chips to China to try and slow them down. Step 2. Cut off from the best hardware, Chinese engineers at DeepSeek are forced to get creative. They have to innovate on the software side to make their AI hyper-efficient. Step 3. They pull it off, creating a model that proves you don't actually need billions in cutting-edge chips to be the best in the world. And step 4, the market realizes that the demand for all those expensive chips might be about to plummet and Nvidia's stock completely craters. The very US policy designed to hobble Chinese AI accidentally lit the fire for the innovation that hammered a key American company.
Which leaves us with this final thought. For years, we all thought the AI race was a game of brute force. Who could raise the most money, buy the most chips, build the biggest model. But the story of DeepSeek, it suggests a totally different path. It asks a really powerful question. What if this race isn't one with money and power at all, but with pure, simple ingenuity?